Reza and I fell in love before we even met in person.
That's true. We were introduced to each other by a mutual friend, Claire Hoffman. She's this brilliant, clearly intuitive journalist who introduced us via email. She actually sent us each an email introducing us to each other. The first one that she sent me said, meet Jessica, quote, the best person in the world.
And the email to me said that Reza is, and I quote, generally snappy and a fun good time.
Which is
Which
true.
totally
it's actually
sold me.
true.
Not to brag.
Yeah. So I did what everybody would do in this situation. I Googled her. And what I discovered was, yes, indeed, she is actually the best person in the world.
Slightly exaggerated there, but
those of you who may not be familiar, Jessica, of course, is the co-founder of Kiva.org, the world's first peer-to-peer micro-lending platform. Absolutely. So essentially, what she does is she spent her entire career going around the world helping entrepreneurs and helping people lift themselves up out of poverty.
I'm not crying at my own credentials here, I just have an eyelash. And I Googled Reza too. And I don't know if you have any idea about this guy, but he's super Googleable and it's really fun. So within a few clicks, I found these amazing images of this guy who would become my husband. I found angry Reza, thoughtful Reza. Did you actually just say that, Reza? And perhaps my personal favorite, oh, I'm about to take you down, Reza. And in all seriousness, as I continued to read, not just look at pictures of this guy, I learned that he was allegedly Muslim. So, seriously, I thought that could be a problem. I grew up as a Protestant evangelical Christian. This is me with my college youth group, one of them. I'm there in the front. I had shaved my head. It was kind of a spiritual thing. I thought this might be something that Jesus would do. It's another conversation. And all of my relationships up to the point when that wonderful email came across my inbox had been with other Christians because it was a big part of my life. It was a huge deal and still is. A huge part of my identity and my purpose, how I find meaning and direction in my life. And so I figured, well, the person that I'm with should share that, should share Christianity with me. But by the time I met Reza, or was about to meet him, I had realized that, none of those relationships had actually worked out. And in fact, after going through a divorce in my 20s, divorce is not funny, but after going through divorce in my 20s.
It is to me.
I know. I realized, okay, maybe being a Christian isn't the most important or even a necessary thing as I hopefully find my life partner.
I should say that I totally saw where she was coming from. I mean, even though I grew up Muslim, I actually converted to evangelical Christianity when I was in high school. That's me with my youth group. The photos in black and white because it was taken in the 1940s. I'm the guy right in the corner over here. Do you see that's me? Yeah.
I know, right?
I had grown my hair out because I thought that's what Jesus would do.
Yeah.
No? That way? No?
And Reza sounds flippant. He likes to joke about many things, but he was hardcore. He was serious. He was probably more zealous than I even was, and I was super into it. He even, this is not his album cover, but it's so funny. He even had a Christian rock band, no kidding. He was the lead singer.
No, that's not true. We were Christians in a rock band.
They had songs about God, to God.
They could be about God, they could be about girls, they could be about...
Could they have...
Look, the point is that I got where she was coming from. Okay? I understood what she was meaning and how hard it is for someone in this community to marry outside of it. I mean, even though I had, by the time I got to college, left Christianity and gone back to Islam, and even though through my studies I had garnered a much more expansive idea of religion and faith and the intersection of those two, I knew from my days as an evangelical Christian that it ain't so hard to marry outside of that community.
Or it is so hard. It ain't so easy.
It ain't so easy. That's what I meant to say.
We correct each other.
Right.
And so by the time we actually did meet, we soon found out that we actually shared quite a lot in terms of our values, our beliefs, our practices, and just how we wanted to live our lives. And we decided that the differences that did exist did not need to be a conversation ender. They didn't need to have us stop in our tracks. They were the beginning of a conversation. And so we got married. We kept talking. We got married. We had these guys. I know, monkeys. We had this guy. He's a little chunkier. And here we are today.
Yeah. I know. That's why we keep having them.
I mean,
adorable. I know.
We're so thankful for our family. And even though our love story is our favorite, and we're going to tell you more about it, we know that ours is not the only one of two people from different faith backgrounds coming together.
That's right.
Interfaith marriage is the new thing. We are the new normal. If you look at marriages from 1950 onward, the whole set of marriages from that time period until today, about 12%, only 12% are interfaith. If you look at marriages from 2000 onward, 45% are interfaith. Very soon, the majority of marriages in the United States will be interfaith.
That's right. And there's a lot of reasons for this, by the way. First of all, people are just getting married later in life. And studies show that if you get married later in life, you are far more likely to marry someone outside of your own community, be it your racial community or your faith community. And by the way, it also shows that those relationships are the ones that last the longest.
Reza was so old when we got married.
It's true.
I wasn't, but...
It's true. The second... It's true. I acknowledge this completely. The second reason is that people are just much more mobile nowadays. The average American moves nearly 12 times in his or her lifetime. That means that you're more likely to be exposed to diverse communities, different faith communities, different ethnicities as you move around the country. The third reason for this is that people are switching their religions more often than not. 44% of Americans are in a religion that they did not grow up in or that they weren't born into. So this notion of changing your religion, going from no religion to religion or religion to no religion, is something that's unique about the American religious landscape. Something else that's unique about the American landscape is the rise of what we like to call the nones or the non-affiliated. This is a group of Americans who refuse to identify with any particular religion, but who are still spiritual. They're what we would call spiritual, but not religious. You know what I mean? According to the most recent Pew polls, nearly a quarter of Americans describe themselves as non-affiliated. And actually, among millennials, that number is nearly 2/3.
And to throw one more stat at you, of married Americans who do not claim any religious affiliation, almost 60% of them are married to somebody, or is it 70? It's 60. Almost 60% of them are married to somebody who does. So you can come at interfaith marriage from a variety of different standpoints. There are myriad ways to form an interfaith union.
That's right.
And despite the fact that this is on the rise, despite the fact that it's the new normal and will be the majority of marriages quite soon, a lot of people are still uncomfortable with it. They have questions and fears about how it works, what it's supposed to mean, and what you do in an interfaith marriage. One of the questions that comes up a lot for people, it's more a sentiment of, gosh, well, isn't it so hard to understand each other? How do you do that when you come from such different places, such different systems of belief? It just so happens that interfaith couples are masters of communication. Studies actually show that interfaith couples, interfaith marriages are better at communicating than same-faith couples. It's this thing, this term that marriage experts call dyadic consensus. And it's basically the skill, the ability to communicate well, to understand each other, and to come to an agreement on difficult issues. Perhaps because we saw it coming before we even met from the Googling and stuff. Maybe because interfaith couples know from the get-go, hey, there are differences between us. They figure it out. They figure out how to communicate.
In other words, it's now scientifically proven that interfaith relationships are better.
Reza gets paid to have strong opinions, so just let that one. Yes. Interfaith is better. Another thing that comes up sometimes is this, well, gosh, won't it weaken your beliefs to be in a marriage with somebody who has a different faith background than you? Unless you're trying to convert each other, this doesn't have to be the case. It turns out that, well, let me put it this way. If you're in a room with people who all always agree with you, or even just with one person, with a partner who's always nodding his head at what you say, keep doing that, that's good. It's actually easy to kind of lapse into sloppy thinking. If you have to explain stuff to somebody and tell not just the what, but the why of all the stuff that you believe, at least in my experience, it's been a forcing function to really clarify my thinking and galvanize what I believe.
Another question that people ask often is, okay, fine, but what if you're in a religion that dictates something that is contrary to your partner's religion or that opposes your partner's religion? And this is a good question. I'm not saying it's not a good question. It's just that it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between doctrine and belief. These are not the same thing. Belief is personal. It's individual. It's often wildly contradictory. Doctrine is what the church says. Doctrine is the church's idea of right and wrong and what you do and what you do not do. And it might come as somewhat of a surprise to learn that these two things are often very much in conflict with each other. Let me give you a perfect example of this. So, most of you probably know that the Catholic Church is adamantly against birth control, and yet 82% of Catholics in America disagree with the church and its views on birth control. 69% of Catholics disagree with the church when it comes to issues of divorce and remarriage.
And I didn't know these things growing up, but if you look at my own faith tradition, it turns out 2/3 of evangelicals disagree with the church's teaching on abortion. Almost half feel the same about the church's teachings on homosexuality. So I had these opinions that I just thought I was kind of alone in them.
But
Turns
you're
out I'm not.
Absolutely not. And okay,
This
check
is
this
the fun
out.
one. This is really fun.
21% of atheists believe in God.
Let that one just...
Let that one sink in for a little bit. Yeah. 12% of atheists believe in heaven. Actually, 10% of atheists pray at least once a week, according to Pew. Right? Right?
Right?
So basically what we're trying to say is just because someone calls themselves a believer doesn't mean you know what exactly those beliefs are.
Until you get to know them.
Until you get to know them.
Another question, and again, it's kind of more of a sense. Isn't it just easier to be the same? Like, gosh, it seems like a lot of work to communicate so much and stuff. I mean, look, not necessarily. Even in same-faith marriages, there are differences. A friend, actually somebody in this room I will not name, a few weeks ago was saying, gosh, I feel like I'm in an interfaith marriage. I mean, technically my husband and I are both Catholic, but I go to yoga on Sundays and he goes to Mass to pray for my soul.
And although it probably doesn't need to be said, the fact of the matter is just because you share the same religion doesn't mean you share the same way of interpreting that religion. Every single person in this photograph calls himself a Christian, and yet Christianity means something vastly different to all of them.
So if sameness is the goal, finding somebody with the same religious label as you may not be the best strategy, and we would like to propose that sameness just shouldn't be the goal and perhaps even can't be the goal. And here's the crux of the conversation. Some relationships are interfaith, like ours. All relationships are interbelief. It's not like interfaith marriage has the corner market on bringing two different people together. Like, ask anybody who is married. And to get really vulnerable for a minute, while we do come from different faith backgrounds, Reza and I also come from very different cultures of dishwasher loading strategy.
It's true.
It's really
Very
intense. Mine is right.
Mine's
His
actually
is
right.
incorrect.
No, mine's right. Yours is wrong. We've agreed on that. Okay, so what are we saying here? Are we saying that it's all easy and hunky-dory and everything's fine and we've answered all the questions and all that? No, of course not. I mean, look, there's a lot of, remaining issues that are involved in interfaith marriages, and some of them are pretty hard to deal with. For instance, the in-laws, right? Now, Jessica and I were very lucky. Our
families are the best.
Yeah, our families
We're
are great.
super
I mean, despite the fact that Jessica's family had never met a Muslim before they met me, and now that I think about it, I probably shouldn't have had you wear a burqa the first time we were with them.
That did not happen.
No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, really, this is true. The only Muslims that they knew were the Muslims that they saw on TV. And, we don't always have the best roles on TV. And despite all that, very soon after meeting me, all of that went away. They absolutely welcomed me into their home, into their heart. They love me like their own son.
They kind of love
wonderful.
Reza more than me at this point. Like when we all go visit, they're like, yay, the grandkids, and Reza. And I'm like, I'm here too, guys. And Reza's family, they actually could have cared less what religion I was. They just wanted me to have many babies in rapid succession, which I totally did. So I'm all good in their book.
They're fine. They just wanted babies.
But there are things that are within the control of an interfaith couple, and we feel like there's one sort of quality that can be the death knell, that is kind of the deal breaker. And that's when religion becomes dogma. Because when somebody's dogmatic, when there's a dogmatic partner in a relationship, it's often the case that that person is not so good at listening, doesn't have much of a desire to really understand and get the other person and their experience. And on the heels of this, often somebody who's dogmatic is really bad at admitting that maybe, sometimes, possibly, there's a non-0% chance that they could be wrong. And let's be clear, this is not a religious problem. This is not a religious problem. This is a personality disorder, and it's rooted in a lack of respect for somebody else's experiences and an over-glorification of one's own.
Yeah, look, if you're in an interfaith relationship with someone that's dogmatic like this, religion is the least of your problems.
Melania,
like, you got far
we're here
deeper
for you.
problems. Yes, we hear you, Melania. We hear you.
Yeah.
The point being is that this is a personality issue, not a religion issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so how have we made it work? What have we done to make this work
Like
for us?
10 in that picture.
So first and foremost, when Jessica and I met each other, what we recognized pretty early on was that despite the fact that we came from different religious traditions, that we more or less shared the same values. I mean, yeah, we expressed those values in a different spiritual language. Mine was Islam, Jessica's was Christianity, but the fact of the matter is that we just learned each other's language and understood very quickly how much we shared in common. I mean, imagine like if you're in a restaurant and you're sitting next to a table with a couple, and one of them is speaking French and the other one is speaking German, and yet they seem to be understanding each other. You would simply assume that the French person learned German and the German person learned French, and so they made it work. And that's pretty much what we did. I was, of course, already fluent in Jessica's language of Christianity, but it didn't take long for her to become fluent in my language. And once we were there, we recognized instinctively that the values that we were born with, that came from our religious traditions, were practically the same.
And maybe more importantly, definitely more importantly, I watched how Reza lived out those values in his life, and that was compelling and inspiring and made me want to do life with him. It wasn't just all talk.
Yeah. Now, you've probably noticed that there's one thing that we haven't mentioned yet, which is, what about the kids, right? What do you do about the kids? Now, I will mention that usually when people ask us this question, they don't mean, how are you going to raise the children? Which faith are you going to emphasize? Which tradition are you going to rear them in? Usually this is a question about indoctrination.
Which we have no interest in either way. Even if we were of the same faith, it's not something that we would want to do. We want to give our kids two main things. We want to give them depth and breadth. And a quick way to think about this, the way we think about it, depth for us means having a strong foundation of knowing, having an identity and knowing what we believe as a family and as individuals within that family. Not all thinking exactly the same, but we have an identity and we say, this is how we are, this is what we believe in our family in terms of those values. Breadth is religious literacy. We want our kids to be good citizens of the world and to understand how other people think, what they believe, and to have an idea of the other languages that exist out there.
Our philosophy is based on something that the Buddha once said. He said that if you want to draw water, you don't dig 6 one-foot wells, you dig 1 6-foot well. What he meant by that is that if you want to have a deep spiritual experience, it's important to pick a path, pick a well. But he also understood that no matter what well you choose, the water that you're drawing from is the water that everybody is drawing from. And that's what we believe, and it's also what we want to teach our children. We want them to choose their own well, but we also want them to drink from every other well around them. We do this thing on Sundays that we like to call home church. So we get together with our family, we pray a little bit, we sing a little bit, we share a little bit, and then we will usually have some kind of lesson from some religion of the world. So we've read like a little bit of the Ramayana.
We've read the whole thing many times, actually.
Okay, we've read all of the Ramayana, which is kind of impressive.
One of our sons is like super into it.
It's true. I mean, it's about a blue god with a magic bow and arrow. Like, who wouldn't love that?
It's awesome.
We've read stories from the gospel and shared parables. We've gone out and done things. We've gone out with our Jewish friends and we've built sukkahs.
Which is like basically building a fort, so our other son is like, I want to do this.
Exactly.
I want to be Jewish, I want to build forts.
We've gone to religious services in our community and religious services all around the world.
Yeah. And it's true, right now, we are focusing on breadth a little bit more than depth, and there's a reason for this. We think it's the most appropriate way to approach things right now, sort of the overview first, and then as they become more and more mature, we're excited and we'll be encouraging of them to choose authentically their own path. So we want them to see the options, the languages that are out there, and then what we are doing, we hope, through home church, is having them learn the skills that will allow them to dig those deep wells one day, over time. We're coming together on a weekly basis to pray, to meditate, to talk about the things that are important, to have fellowship. We think that those practices will allow them eventually to dig deep. And these values, we really also believe that these values, no matter what language they eventually choose, will be the things that they hold dear and carry with them, these values that we're raising them with, no matter what religion they choose. And we believe that this is true because so many of the world's religions do share so many of the same values.
And so we want them to go around the world and to experience all these different religions. But most importantly, we want them not just to learn these values, but we want them to put these values into play in the world. I mean, after all, what's the point of having beliefs if you're not willing to act them out in the world?
So, because we believe in compassion as a family, they made those signs themselves.
It's true.
Because we believe, this slide. Because we believe in compassion, we serve together. Because we believe in generosity, we give together. Because we believe in being truthful, we don't hide things from each other. Because we believe in justice, and we believe in justice, we fight for that together. And most of all, above everything else, because we believe in love, we decide to see each other and hear each other, to respect each other, to stand, and to choose togetherness every day, differences and all. Thank you.